I kind of always say that my motto in life is everything is allowed except obviously killing, doing anything illegal or unethical, and not improving your business processes.
Welcome to Process Pioneers, the show that takes a deep dive into the minds of decision makers, key influencers, and process experts who are pioneering the world of everything process.
Welcome to another episode of Process Pioneers. My name is Daniel Rayner. I'm the host of Process Pioneers. And in each of these episodes, I have the absolute privilege of sitting down with different business process management practitioners. And they're from all various walks of life, from various organizations, whether internally or externally as consultants, or even sometimes as professors and researchers from universities. And today I have the absolute privilege of sitting down with Marlon Dumas. And I have a little bit of an introduction here, so just bear with me. But Marlon, he is an educator, researcher, and entrepreneur in the field of business process management. He's one of the co-founders of Apromore, which is a process mining solution. Currently, he's a professor at the University of Tartu in Estonia, which is the largest and most comprehensive university in Estonia, and formerly has been with QUT in Brisbane, Australia. I'm very excited for this interview. Marlon, thanks for joining me.
Thank you very much, Daniel, for inviting me. It's really a pleasure always to talk about BPM. It's kind of been my life, and happy to be sharing my experiences here.
That's great. So obviously that was a very brief introduction of your extensive history and career in BPM, but maybe if you want to take us back to when process first piqued your interest or sparked that interest in you, and then take us on a journey leading up to today.
Definitely, yeah. So I started in the field of databases. So I was I'm trained as a computer scientist, and I started in the field of databases, and I was studying what types of queries are made into different types of enterprise databases, particularly queries that have a temporal perspective to it. And as I concluded my doctoral research in that area, I moved to QUT in Brisbane and decided to change, because I was very interested in understanding where do these queries come from. So they must come from somewhere, right? So I went up and I joined a QUT and working in the field of e-commerce, B2B e-commerce in particular, with a local company called GBSD, which develops software for the financial actors, mainly for the banks. And kind of got to understand what is going on above the database and what the applications are doing, and got a lot into the middleware, that connects these different applications. But I still kind of didn't understand. Like, I understood the queries went through the database, but I didn't know what these users were wanting to do.
Right.
So at the time at QUT, I was there with two other gentlemen, Michael Rossman and Arthur ter Hofstede at QUT, and we kind of started a group, and possibly inspired mostly by Michael Rossman, we oriented it in the direction of business process management. And I got very interested because I thought, like, that is where those queries that are hitting those enterprise databases are coming from. So we started the group with this multidisciplinary approach. Michael Rossman coming more from the management perspective, and the two of us with Arthur coming from the database in my case, and in his case from the workflow management perspective, the automation perspective. Right. And with this, like, data automation, management, governance, strategic alignment that Michael was bringing, we created a pretty large group. At the time, like in 2004, we partnered a lot with SAP that had a corporate research center in Brisbane. And we worked with them on the development, on various types of developments at the time around their middleware called NetWeaver. Right. And we created this, we helped them to contribute to various standards, including the BPMN standards. Some of the contributions I've made to the BPMN standards came from our group. I worked for a long time in the field of process modeling because of this incursion into the field of BPMN. model merging, model searching, model indexing, model repositories. And back in 2010, together with one of my PhD students who was just graduating, we created this open source project called Apromore, which stood for Advanced Process Model Repository.
Right.
And at the beginning, we worked on this with Suncorp a lot, and Suncorp was kind of, using it to manage some of their model collections. They had huge model collections at the time, and developed quite a lot of functionality together with them. And around 2012, 2013, I had already moved back to Europe, but we got very interested in going back to the data in a way. So saying, okay, we have learned a lot about how business processes are structured, how you can conceptualize them, how you can analyze them, simulate them, improve them. And then we saw, but there's so much you can do with the process models that you manually design. So we went back into the data and worked a lot on techniques for automated discovery of process models, conformance checking, performance mining, comparison of process variants based on data. And that made it that we basically pivoted our open source project Apromore, and it became a process analytics, process mining platform until we spinned it off last year. And now we are working in cooperation with GB Tech in Germany to bring these innovations from the process mining field into the market. So, and that's where I am in a way.
That's great. And obviously you would have seen many different organizations and their challenges when trying to adopt BPM. And I would assume that you would also see the difference in BPM maturity between, say, Europe and Australia, having been in both different regions. But when it comes to an organization adopting BPM as a form of management, what are some of the biggest challenges that you see an organization face, or maybe even some of the biggest mistakes you see an organization make?
I think it's really, to a large extent, a matter of people to begin with. So in all the dimensions, it's really the people. So, and it's the people at different levels. So it's like when it reminds me when these Italian teams back in the 90s, they will hire a great striker, but they will have a poor back defense, or they will hire a great goalkeeper, but they will have a terrible striker. So it's the same with BPM. It's like you need to have the whole vertebra, So you need to have the top level support. So you need to have a COO, a CFO, a CIO possibly, who appreciates BPM and is capable of pitching it to the CEO and to the boardroom. And you also need to have at the other extreme, you need to have the people who have an attitude towards working on processes. So who have an attitude to follow guidelines, to try to be predictable, to try to help the organization to serve its customers. There has to be a lot of commitment to the customers and to delivering to the customers and structuring all work to deliver those outcomes to the customers. And then in the middle, you need to have all these managers at different levels, at all levels, and analysts who understand process BPM methods and techniques, who are receptive to those methods and techniques. At a higher level, managers who have a strong understanding of BPM strategic alignment and BPM governance, to coordinate all those other managers that are trying to apply BPM methods and techniques. And so you have to have all that in place, and how do you align all that stars at the same time? That is the difficult part. And what I see a lot of mistakes is somehow either you start from the top, right? And then you as a BPM savvy COO, you bring in a number of your former colleagues who had helped you to improve processes in your former organizations, and you bring them into the team. But below, there is not enough awareness, not enough culture of processes and what are the benefits for the customers. And you start seeing discussions about processes being equated to procedures, which they are not in no way. And BPM becoming a matter of compliance, which it is not. And then things get twisted, or vice versa. Perhaps more often you see people at the bottom, teams and their managers and business analysts who have a very strong understanding of BPM methods and tools and who can successfully apply it to their business units. But it never goes beyond. And then what you see typically, and I saw it with my eyes, being in academia for a long time, I had industry people in Brisbane, in Sydney, etc., taking me for coffee and confessing all their sins and all their BPM sins and all the things that were happening, and then telling me, how they were disappointed that their successful initiative was not gaining a lot of visibility, and then successful people ending up in companies that were where there was the system, where there was the vertebra, and where they were appreciated because they could expand the reach of BPM in that organization and be better received than in some other organizations where the whole vertebra did not form.
Yes, right. And so when you're trying to, pitch BPM, let's just say that there's probably going to be people listening to this conversation where they're listening to what you're saying and they understand, right, it's about people. I need to get people on board. And you've got all the different levels of people. But I guess what you've been saying is how important it is to get that executive or that senior leadership sponsorship or buy-in. How do you present BPM to that executive level in a way that they have an appetite for it and they understand, right, we need this in our organization. We need to understand our processes. We need to be able to manage them, and we need to be able to improve them, and know that the changes we're making are going to provide great value to the organization. How do you pitch to that senior level?
Yeah, I think that one of the things is that when you get into pitching, so when you are pitching, that probably you are doing the wrong thing already. So it should, as you said, it's about creating appetite. So it's not about going and selling something. I see a lot of people talking about selling BPM or about BPM buying, and I feel that when you get to that, then it's kind of, you are already going against the current. So you have to rather make it about what matters to the organization. So, in many organizations, and particularly in these times, for example, it will be about agility, it will be about adaptation. It's about, being able to change our direction, to adapt, to change our structures, whatever terms you want to talk about, in order to respond to the challenges that COVID has brought. So that will have been the theme of today. 2 years ago, it would have been about customer satisfactions and NPS and growing the markets and, adapting for growth. And I have seen periods of time where it has been about cost cutting. So it's about efficiency. So it's not so much about quality, although there is that, but there is also about efficiency. So I think the ABC is to understand the different values that BPM can bring, and I'm a big fan of the value-driven BPM system of Kirchner, which identifies the 7 values, like the transparency at the center, quality at the top, efficiency at the bottom. So that's the main axis that BPM brings you. Compliance, and I have seen periods of time where BPM has been brought in because of compliance, right? And on the other side of compliance, there is agility, which is what you need now, right? Right now, you need more agility. You need to be able to change the direction of your enterprise. The strategy is changed. It has changed because of COVID, and the strategy will change again after COVID. So you need to be able to mobilize resources along the strategy. And then you have this other axis, which is networking, being able to become leaner and partner with external organizations, all the outsourcing movement of the 2000s, all the way from 2001 to 2009. So all this outsourcing movement can be driven by BPM. That's one area where BPM can contribute. Or integration, for example, in the context of mergers of companies. That's where you can bring BPM as a way of enabling the merger. So you have to always say, given what the current strategic axis of the organization, what can BPM do for them? And you need to find the resources, starting with the closest level you can, given the position you are in the company, to bring that to bring that innovation into the organization. And so what I believe is that you shouldn't be selling to the top. They should be wanting to buy themselves. They should be wanting more of it. On the other hand, you do have to sell below you. That's the interesting thing. So you have to be able to say, I don't sell above. I will get bought because I am delivering value to the organization via BPM, right? But you have to sell below to get buy-in from the people below you, so that they, go in the direction that the business process change is taking. And if everybody at every level of the organization is doing that, you see how at some point in time the CEO wants BPM, because he's seeing that those are the initiatives that are delivering value, that are aligning the organization with the strategy. Yes, sure, you have to present the benefits of the process changes that you have made. You have to present, you have to communicate all that to the top. So you have to communicate to the top, but it's not a matter of selling. It's a matter of making people, in any way, it's about making people want to have it, Yeah.
Yes, that's great. And you remind me of a story of an Australian organisation where BPM hadn't been adopted, but an individual was brought into the organisation and they were working on a very specific project, and they wanted to bring BPM into that project, and they were doing it on a small scale, just on one project, but because they were delivering value by using BPM, the overall business unit took notice, and then they adopted BPM, and then the whole department took notice, and then they adopted BPM, and before you know it, the executive level noticed what was happening over in this area of the organization, and they said, we need that across the rest of the organization, because that's delivering significant value. But I just wanted to ask a follow-up question to what you were talking about, getting buy-in from the people below you. I'm assuming, they're the frontline employees, they're the process practitioners, they're the ones that are going to be carrying out the work. And if you're going to be changing any processes, you might be changing processes that they've done for the last 5, 10, 15 years. How do you get that buy-in from these people?
Right. So these people have certain motivations. I refuse to. If in an organization the motivation is just holding to your job, then you have a problem, and then you have to address it as a human resource management problem, which it is. But assuming you are a well-managed organization, you will find that people have a certain customer to serve. Internal customers, external customers. And they want to serve them, but they also want to use their time efficiently. So they also want to kind of have that, not be in a rush all the time, not be against deadlines all the time, not be stressed all the time, do things in an orderly manner, not have to react to problems, but rather preempt the problems. So when you have people who are driven towards some goals that relate to some customers and who want to do it in the most efficient manner, well, that is the ABC of where BPM can be applied. And you have to present it as, it's about helping you serve, the needs of these stakeholders or customers that you are serving in a way that will get you less stress. It's always about, it's about really like stressing less your resources, delivering more and stressing less your resources. The moment you present it that way, it becomes much easier. So, for example, I like the way one of the reasons why RPA, I think, has taken a lot, robotic process automation has taken a lot lately, is because in many organizations, not necessarily all, it has not been presented as a way of getting rid of people, right? It has been successfully pitched in many organizations as a way of allowing people to become more efficient, to fulfill their needs more efficiently, and to have more time to serve the customers, to deal with the exceptional cases that need attention, to not be running behind deadlines, but rather, be preempting those deadlines or preempting the problem. So that's the way it kind of should be solved. I remember workflow automation in the late 90s, beginning of 2000s especially. It was the exact opposite. The way the initiative was introduced was as a rationalization initiative, and it was about cutting costs in the same way that outsourcing a little bit later. So in that case, of course, you're going to get resistance because it becomes about targeting your job. But if you make it about helping the people at the operational level to fulfill the needs that they are fulfilling and to just do it better, then so be it. So talk with them about the benefits for them. Talk to them about how many deadlines are being missed, or how many times you have to run against deadlines, or how many times the customer is dissatisfied, and how many times we delivered with a certain defect, and we are not happy about it. We like to do our job properly, and or about how you are overloaded. Talk about that, about your overload, and then say, we are going to make changes. We're going to make changes that are going to reduce your overload, that are going to make you and your colleagues work more effectively. So if you present it that way, you bring, your consultants, your authorities to communicate that message, then you're going to have a much easier time. And I think that it's almost like at the end, you want them to say, yes, we have to do this. Yeah.
Yes, that's great. That's really good. And obviously for an organization, as you've been sort of listing off there are many different benefits to BPM, whether their focus is on cost cutting or saving time or generating new revenue or increasing revenue. There are a number of different benefits to BPM. Do you have an example of that you can share where an organization has took the effort and the time and the energy to understand their business processes, whatever that looks like how, in whatever method they used, improved their processes, and then that delivered significant value to that organization? Do you have any examples that come to mind?
Well, definitely you are describing Suncorp between 2002 and 2010, roughly. I'm not going to comment about Suncorp today. It's not necessary. I'm not saying either positive or negative about Suncorp today. I'm saying about Suncorp during that period. It went from night to day in a matter of 7 years, driven by a vertebra that went all the way to the executives, including a phenomenal CIO they had in the middle of that around 2005, and all the way to the people at the bottom, many of whom you find all over Australia nowadays doing BPM in different organizations. So that was a fantastic situation. When we cooperated with Suncorp in 2010, they had very, very well structured process model knowledge repository, and they were managing things in a very, very effective manner. So how that happened was really the vertebra. The vertebra connected. The vertebra was there all the way from the executives to the people at the operational level that were doing those things. The CommBank, the new bank initiative of CommBank as well in the late 2000s was a great initiative of BPM, maybe less focused on the methods and tools, more focus on strategic alignment and governance. But still, I mean, there are many ways to go into BPM. It's not necessarily that you have to, model a lot and keep model repositories. That's one way. There are many other ways to do it. So, I guess there are many nice examples in Australia, of course, in Europe. I mean, the transformation of Lego in Denmark, Siemens and BMW have been very successful in their BPM initiatives and long-term programs. So we there are lots of very nice examples to comment upon. There is a book on business process management cases, edited by Jan Mendling and company, that retells in 2 volumes about 20 plus detailed stories of very successful organizations in Europe, but also elsewhere, which I encourage practitioners to have in their bookshelves. Yeah.
That's great. That's really good. And for someone listening right now, that they're hearing you talk about the value that BPM can provide an organization, but maybe they're within an organization that doesn't have that BPM focus, and it's not really fostered there. In presenting, or I guess introducing BPM to that organization, what objections may that person face when trying to bring business process management practice into an organization? What sort of objections may they come up against?
I think it's a matter of not aligning to the existing landscape when you have that kind of resistance, let's call it. So you don't have to call BPM. You can call it whatever it is called in there. You can work together with whichever type of methods are already in place. So there are organizations, for example, those coming from an engineering or a manufacturing tradition where Six Sigma is very strong. To me, I mean, Six Sigma is in a way part of BPM. I do not see BPM as being one specific way of managing the process. It's about managing your processes, and Six Sigma is one way of managing your process, just as Lean is another way, or in some areas of total quality management. So the first thing is you don't need to call managing business processes. You can use the terms, and the next thing is the beauty about BPM. The beauty about BPM, and if you compare it with respect to specific disciplines like Lean or Six Sigma or GRC, etc., is that it kind of allows you to operate over all these value axes I mentioned before. So you can use it to enhance compliance, you can use it to enhance quality, you can use it to enhance efficiency, you can use it to balance between quality and efficiency, or between compliance and agility and responsiveness, let's call it, or between external networking and internal integration. So this is the versatility of it that allows you to, at any point in time, align it with what the organization needs and not necessarily call it BPM. You can be doing BPM right now and be calling it the COVID response squad, right? So you can be in the COVID response squad doing BPM. You just didn't call it that way. You're just calling it, we are the COVID response squad of the organization. We're helping the different units to adapt to the challenges that COVID has brought in, right? And what are you doing? Well, you're changing the processes. Doesn't matter that you don't call it that way.
Yeah, that's great. That's amazing. And I think that would really help with some organizations that maybe have been burnt by a failed BPM attempts in the past. I know there are organizations out there that they went on a 2-3 year process mapping exercise. There wasn't a why behind it. There wasn't a purpose behind it. They had no intention to improve anything. They just did all this documentation, got to the end of that time, looked back and thought, why do we do all of that? So I think language can be very powerful. And if if you're noticed that you're getting maybe some kickback around the language you're using around business process management, as you're saying, you can be still doing BPM without calling it BPM.
Yeah, words make the world. That's certainly the case. And also I would say that regarding these initiatives where a lot of documentation effort has been made, I kind of always say is like my motto in life is everything is allowed except obviously killing, doing anything illegal or unethical, and not improving your business processes. That's the key. So you are allowed to do COVID response. You are allowed to do Lean. You are allowed to do Six Sigma. You are allowed to do to deploy a GRC framework. Everything, so long as you improve the process. You are even allowed to map your processes, for God's sake. Just make sure you improve those processes that you are mapping. And the moment you forget that premise, that you're there to improve somebody's process, then that's the moment where, as a BPM professional, you are no longer a BPM professional. You're something else.
Mm-hmm. Yes, that's good. And looking towards the future now, because obviously the last 10 years, we've seen technology disrupt most industries. You know, we've seen the likes of, robotic process automation. We're seeing process mining, which is quite a popular topic at the moment, and one that I know that you're quite involved with. But looking over the next 2, 3, 5, 10 years, what are the current trends that you're seeing, and where do you think organizations should be putting their time, effort, and energy as we move into the future?
Yes, so as I just said, I'm a big believer of everything we do is about improving a process. So what has happened in the past 25 years of BPM has been about improving the process, and what is going to happen in the next 25 years is going to be about improving the process. So whatever I do, I like to position it in that respect. So I think that what we're going to see in the 2020s is the rise of AI-driven process improvement that includes automated process improvement. And AI usually starts from the data. So we start from the data, but unlike current techniques where you get the data and you have to massage it a lot, and you have to get your data science team on board. You have to make an entire project out of getting the insights to improve the process. We're going to see more and more of the trend towards automated process improvement. So that the managers are being helped by the machine to continuously improve their processes. Process mining is a first step in that direction. Process mining, the power of it is that it takes these analytics, and it makes it self-service for process owners, process managers, process analysts. So whereas before the process manager had to ask the data analytics or the BI or the data science team to inspect certain data about a process in order to extract certain insights. Now with process mining, they can do it themselves. That's the power of it. If I look on the automation side, what RPA does is really one thing. It's like it makes it possible for the managers, for the analysts to, or even for the workers to automate their own part of the process. So it pushes in this direction of citizens process improvement. Everybody can contribute to improving the process. And we're going to see more and more of that. And currently for process mining, while you can do like 1 or 2 days training and start analyzing a data set, and that's the beauty of it, it's like self-service, it is still manual analysis. So you have to kind of, slice your data and say, here are my cases from New Zealand, and here are my cases from New South Wales and from Victoria. And I have to start comparing the process maps and looking at dashboards and shifting things around to find what is going on. Why am I having more complaints in Victoria than New South Wales, and to find ways to improve it. So that's where process mining is at the moment. And it's quite, time intensive. So you will get something if you stare at those things and you sift around things for 2 hours, 3 hours, 4 hours, but it's going to take you a lot of time to get there. So with automated process improvement, which is the next thing I see, is the machine is finding the points where your process could be improved and is making recommendations. So I see the emergence in the next 5 years of these business process improvement recommendation systems. So they recommend you, you have a problem here, and here is where it comes from, and these are the treatments you can apply to get there. So it's a little bit the trend we are seeing in medicine with personalized medicine, etc. It's like, there's a recommendation made to your situation specifically, and not just generic tools. Mm-hmm. So that's what I see, and there's lots of things that are going to emerge. For example, discovering AI-driven discovery of automation opportunities, where the AI is telling you, here are the points where you can automate, where it's worth to do it, and here is the RPA bot that automates them. Here are the points where you can reallocate resources. Maybe you need to move some resources in this area from more resources on Monday and Tuesday, less of them on Thursday and Friday. And here's how you can reallocate your workforce to get there. Some of the large companies, American companies in the US, have made tremendous investments to make that type of improvements on certain processes. Think about how Starbucks automates its roster. But what we're seeing is these techniques become commoditized, and we're going to see them hitting the market, and you're going to see a lot of automated process improvement engines that are going to use combinations of predictive analytics and simulation to tell you how you can improve your process in a particular direction.
That's very exciting. I'm sure there'll be plenty of people listening right now that that will be very excited for automated process improvement. I know that in whatever organization that, or whoever's listening right now from various organizations, that they're all at different levels of BPM maturity. They're all at different levels. They all require, I guess, a different thing at a different time, depending on where they're at, whether it's improving their culture, whether it is that they need the executive team to be on board, whether it's they need to understand what's actually happening in their processes. Maybe they think they know, but they don't actually know what's really going on. But for someone listening right now that, they've been listening to our conversation about business process management and what it can do for an organization, but this is, you're opening their eyes. This is the start of their learning. Where would you suggest or recommend they go now? I mean, you obviously mentioned that book earlier
I have it here. So I also have it in Spanish as well.
Great.
And the German edition is coming soon. So yes. So I mean, the fundamentals is important. I mean, so the fundamentals of business process management was a big project for us back in 2011-12. Because we think it is kind of very important to form professionals, BPM professionals, that are going to be able to adapt to a wide variety of situations in their career, because that's process practitioners are by nature, adaptation machines. They have to adapt to many different business scenarios. But the book Fundamentals of BPM is very focused on methods and tools, unashamedly so. So methods and techniques for improving processes, process modeling, process mining, simulation, and other quantitative or qualitative analysis methods, redesign methods based on brainstorming, heuristics, and so on. There is also a whole other area that you have to keep in mind as you climb up in the vertebra, which is more about strategic alignment, ensuring setting up BPM governance structures to coordinate the various BPM initiatives and make them sustainable and repeatable and predictable. And there is a very nice book that to me could be called that the fundamentals of a strategic BPM alignment, which is called business process change by Harmon. And I think that, you know, everyone who enters into the field of BPM should have had a very close look at Paul Harmon's book as well. And as I said, I'm a very big fan also of this value-driven BPM framework of Kirschner and company. That to me introduces like the fundamentals of how to position or generate value from BPM. So that's a starting point. And for the rest, I find it's important to visit those classics because there is a lot of content out there. There is no shortcut of content. But the content you find online is kind of driven by specific stakeholders that have specific interests, and they will present you different perspectives, and they are going to present you what, you know, they would like you to hear. So it's very good to get some very good foundations into the basics of business process change, of methods and tools for process management. And then to just listen to all these different perspectives that different vendors or interest groups are going to start presenting to you. And when you combine the two, you will get, you know, you will find your way through the maze, whatever the business circumstances are.
Yes, that's great. And then I think from there, when you're going back to your own organization and putting it into practice, that's where, you know, you'll probably make some mistakes, but you're going to learn from those mistakes. And so it's that trial and error. It's that figuring out what works for your organization at this particular time. But Marlon, obviously within, we've been talking for about 35, 40 minutes now, and we can only scrape the surface on what there is to know about BPM. But I guess my hope is that the viewers, the ones that will be listening to this, will be able to walk away with, even if it's just one piece of advice that sparks a conversation, that sparks an interest, that has them go back into their organization and start this dialogue around, well, what is BPM and what can it do for our organization? Let's learn more about this topic because I think there's a lot of value there. So I think the audience is going to, or will have gleaned a lot from our conversation today. So I just want to thank you for joining me and sharing everything that you can within 40 minutes.
Thank you very much to you, and I'll be very glad to connect to different practitioners. That's what I have been doing in life. So for most of my career, standing on the academic fence and having a neutral stand and talking to lots of people. Everything I know comes from sharings of experience shared with lots of people in different organizations in Australia and Europe. And so I look forward always to connect and to help people figure out how can BPM help their organization in that direction.